What should we do if our dog's response is to freeze in the presence of a trigger? And what if that's complicated by the fact that the trigger then takes that freezing as an invitation to approach? First of all, kudos to this commenter for recognizing the freeze response in their dog. The freeze response is one of the most misidentified stress responses, and I think most tragically misinterpreted stress responses that we see in our dogs. The freeze response is positively correlated with the highest levels of stress. A dog in freeze is more stressed than a dog who is behaving aggressively. The freeze response is also positively correlated with lower overall resilience to stress. The freeze response is a form of passive coping, and it occurs when the dog doesn't believe that there is any way that they can help themselves survive that situation other than to essentially dissociate. Now, we can't ask dogs if they dissociate, but it's a pretty similar phenomenon. And while the freeze response can look like a dog who is physically actually freezing, it can also look like a dog who's in a functional freeze state. So they're moving, but they're not curious. They're not engaging socially. They are not problem solving well. And after the fact, they're likely to crash hard, usually by sleeping a lot and then waking up more highly activated. Tragically, freeze is the most behaviorally manageable response. And because it's a hypoarousal response, we lose those more obvious stress signals that we see in a hyper-aroused state. So dogs who are experiencing the highest levels of stress are often mistaken for being fine. Besides recognizing that this is in fact a response of extreme stress, one of the most important things that we can do for these dogs is to empower them with the agency to get away. We can teach them that in fact they are not helpless and that we can see that they are stressed out, ideally at much lower levels of stress, and that we will get them out of that situation. Particularly in situations where they need us to get them out of there, such as when they're on leash and have no other way to get away than with our support. One way we can do this very directly is by teaching a flight cue. In a context where the dog feels safe and secure and there are no triggers around, we can use the cue that we would like to mean, let's get out of here, and then move away quickly with our dog, followed by a calming activity at the end, like a scatter feed. We can then also play this in loaded contexts when there are no triggers, so running from places where there often are scary things and we have that association, but when they're not there, back to safety. And then finally, we can use this as management in real life situations when we need to get away from the trigger. There can be a lot of nuance, so check out our flight playlist linked in our Google Doc, or we have a whole webinar on this topic.